It speaks to how our society works and to what we want our society to be when you look at how we treat people. And in some cases, it's perfectly fine to treat everybody the same, and in other times it's actually fairer if you treat people differently. And so what I do is I look at the equity components of those different situations. I got 30 years of prosecuted cases from the Serious Fraud Office, and I went through those 30 years of data and pulled out the key factors. We treat tax evaders and welfare fraudsters quite differently. So you can look at this from a perspective of investigations to start with. So we investigate a lot more people for welfare fraud than we do for tax evasion. We prosecute a lot more people for welfare fraud than we do for tax evasion. You have a much higher chance of getting a prison sentence as somebody who commits welfare fraud, and that's for a lot lower level of offending. Detected tax evasion, so this is what Inland Revenue find each year. It does fluctuate, but it tends to be around about $1 billion a year. Detected welfare fraud tends to be around about 30 million. So from an actual perspective of the size, welfare fraud is a much less significant economic crime. I think what surprised me most about this was the privileged treatment that white-collar criminals really do seem to get in the justice system. The language related to people who engage in welfare fraud is really judgmental. Often it's not very nice. They're highly critical of it, whereas a lot of the comments in relation to the white-collar crime is almost justifying the behaviours, and there's a lot of sort of excuses made, reference to good characters, reference to loss of standing in society, and lots of sort of justification for crime that I just don't think is justifiable when it's motivated by greed. I've always been sort of fascinated by New Zealand's approach to retirement savings policy. What happens with New Zealand superannuation is it's what we call a universal pension. It doesn't matter if you're retired, you can still have a full-time job. It doesn't matter how much you get in the way of other income, and it doesn't matter how much you have in the way of other assets, you will still get that pension. Now, all other benefits, any other state payment that you get is provided on a basis of need. New Zealand superannuation isn't. It's provided on a basis of turning 65. Why do we provide New Zealand superannuation to people who simply have no need for it? There wouldn't be an issue if we were a terrifically wealthy country that had unlimited resources, but we're not. We live in a world of constrained resources, which means, sometimes you have to make sensible decisions around where you spend the government taxpayer money.